Welcome back to another episode at Economics Design. Today we're going to talk about another episode on NFTs. There are a lot of NFTs going on when it comes to art, when it comes to beautiful designs, and that's wonderful. I love that. It's another way to start this creators community where we're actually rewarding creators and not just profiting off the intermediaries or allowing the intermediaries to be profiting off the creators. We want to be rewarding the right kind of people, and NFT is doing that. That's wonderful. In this theme of NFTs, we've spoken quite a lot about different types of NFTs. We talked about the economics of NFTs. We talked about the economics of flipping NFTs. We've talked about the underlying blockchain, which is Polygon, that's driving a lot of NFT growth. And lastly, we had an interview with one of these associate professors talking about embedding different kind of mechanism design in NFTs. You see, NFT is not just about art and about design and about graphics. I love it. It's great. But you can still do that in a different kind of you can create the actual art and sell it, or take a picture and keep it. So, that's a whole nother philosophical story. But what I want to add is that what we can build within NFT is amazing. It's huge because one of these pillars in the economic design framework is mechanism design. So in mechanism design, we can build different kind of mechanisms to be allowing for more efficient allocation or investment in the resource that you have. It might not be art, it might not be graphic design, as we have seen today, but think a bit broader, think a bit further, and think about property rights. What if we can tokenize property rights? And instead of signing a thick legal contract, you just sign on your smart contract with all these mechanism design being embedded in there, and when you're selling and distributing these tokens, there's a lot more economics and science behind it. And that's what we want to talk about today. And I also want to share the experiment that I'm working on today, which is the tokenizing property rights, tokenizing distribution rights and publishing rights of the book as an NFT. This is something that I've been experimenting. This is something I've been thinking about for about 1.5 years, and this is something that I thought really seriously about 6 months now, which is, I think it's super interesting. So, backtrack a bit. What we're going to talk about is tokenizing publishing rights as an NFT. How I got started with this idea is that I published a book, right? And it took me 2 years of failures to finally publish the book. And in the third year, I managed to publish it. The first 2 years, it was difficult because nobody really wanted to publish it. I went to a lot of publishing houses, I spoke to a lot of editors, and they were saying that this is very niche, this is too risky. We as a publishing house don't want to make that investment. Now, remember I talked to you about property rights. Long-term investment is one of the things to consider. It's a trade-off. And then the other trade-off is allocation efficiency. So in the investment area, they don't want to be investing in a very niche book because they don't know if there's demand for it. And I completely understand that because this is a big publishing house and they are more risk averse when it comes to publishing. Completely understandable. On the other hand, when we talk about allocation efficiency, I want to allocate the book to the right kind of people who are actually interested in this field, which I'm very glad to find that there are a lot of people in this field that's really interested in the book. So how can we merge the self-publishing, which is efficient allocation, because you're publishing it, you're distributing to the right people in your network. So how do we balance self-publishing and efficient allocation with publishing in a big publishing house where you have investment efficiency in that area? So that's the trade-off that I've been thinking about, that I've been working on. And I figured, you know what? Since I'm doing tokens, since I'm doing mechanism design, why not combine them together and do something about that? So after a while, I realized that there's a way to do that. In general, the token will represent the distribution rights to distribute this specific book. And the price of this distribution right will increase as more and more people come in to distribute. It's not about the pricing model. What the pricing model is here, it's just a way to express the risk aversity of the person distributing the book. So when you are buying the book at first, buying the distribution right, the NFT, to be able to distribute the book, it's a lot cheaper because you're taking on more risk. and I want to compensate you for taking on more risk by making it cheaper for you to buy the book or buy the distribution rights and distribute the book. And as you go up the ladder, you realize more and more people know about the book. More and more people are asking for the book just in different jurisdictions. So there's an incentive for another person to come in to buy the distribution rights and distribute the book within their jurisdiction. Now, in this scenario, there's less risk because there's enough promotion, there's enough advertising, there's enough awareness of the book around the space. So you have to compensate for that. And so you're paying a higher price to buy the distribution and publishing rights. So that's the general idea. And of course, there's bonding curves involved, and there's a very simple bonding curve to measure how the system works. So that's all the general idea. Then, of course, within the smart contract, you can embed things like expiration, limits to the amount of books, and all that kind of funky stuff. Now, the other thing is, why do we need a token for this? Because can we just not use manual calculation to say that, okay, this is the cost and this is, you buy the book, you buy the distribution rights, and you pay the amount of money. Why does it have to be tokenized? Another reason why the tokenization exists is because it is a very powerful way to be doing internal calculation, internal accounting. Remember, when Bitcoin started as a token, it was a way to create this accounting, like a global accounting system, to tabulate the buy side and the demand on the sell side, or the balance sheet of everyone in the world that's balanced by Bitcoins, the amount of tokens for transaction. So in the same vein, what I'm trying to do is, with the physical books, there's the distribution rights, and people will sell the books within your jurisdiction. Now, every time you're selling the book, you're actually doing promotion in a lot of different ways. Some people don't want to buy the physical book. Some people just want the ebook. And ebooks are quite hard to calculate because someone living in Thailand might look at the book that is promoted in New Zealand, but buying the book for the friend in San Francisco. So in that case, it crosses so many jurisdictions. How do I repay, or how do I compensate that advertising to the right kind of people? So this is where tokens come in. So tokens will be the physical sale of books now becomes a way of profit. The proportion of physical books sold will be used to calculate how much of the profits generated by the ebooks will be added to these distributors. So it becomes a new revenue stream for these distributors and for these people who own the distributing rights in an NFT. So that's the general idea and general framework. The next step is looking at the reselling aspect, the licensing aspect. So the conversation that I had a few days ago with Professor Anthony Lee Zhang, he talked about depreciating licenses. This is something that I wrote about in the book. This is something that I'm absolutely obsessed with about 3 years now when I learned about this book called Radical Markets by Glenn Weil. It's a novel way of looking at taxation, looking at how do we balance the trade-off that I mentioned, investment as well as efficient allocation. So in this paper that Anthony wrote, it talks about depreciating licenses, where at every time period, a part of the license is being resold out to the market, and you have to purchase it back to be owning this license and continuously use the license. Or if you don't want to use it anymore, you can resell it to someone else out there. And everything will be using the second price auction method, which is the mechanism that has been awarded the Nobel Prize last year. So it's really an evolution of this new area of mechanism design and market design that is currently, flourishing in the economics space. And there are a lot of ways that we can play around with this in the physical world: spectrum auctions, radio spectrum auctions, different kind of interesting auctions. But what I want to do is to take these concepts and apply them in crypto, because it's a lot faster. The testing time, experimentation time is a lot faster in crypto, which I am absolutely obsessed with. I love it. It's a lot better for us to test these kind of economics theses. And as economists, we love creating models. We love building beautiful models with a lot of assumptions that everyone is rational, that people are wonderful. Sometimes reality is not really like that. And the best way to test these theories out is through actual experimentation. if we were to test these experiments in, let's say, radio spectrum or 5G spectrum allocation, it would be a very novel idea, but it's also a bit too risky for governments to come and play around with it. So what if we can do something a lot smaller scale, let's say in the crypto space, let's say in the licensing of book distribution, so that we can start experimenting with that. We can figure out if there is allocation efficiency as well as investment efficiency, and from there we can start scaling this up to a lot of different areas. So not only can we scale this up in terms of book distribution and the licensing of that, we can do this in a lot of other licensing mechanisms, and we can do this in something like layer 1, layer 2 blockchain validator allocation, especially when we are moving to the proof of stake system. So basically, there's so many ideas coming out, so many ways that we can improve the mechanism design that's in place. And whoever that says that it's too late to come into the space, that's not true. There's still so many things that we're growing, there's so many things that we're learning, there's a lot of experimentations to be done. I'm super excited because this space is just getting more and more exciting every day. We've got bright people like Anthony coming in, we've got academia coming in, we've got practitioners coming in, we've got people from traditional finance coming in. And having all these bright minds together, we can really make a difference. We don't have to change the entire world, we can just build a better future, just maybe 1% of a better future. That's more than enough. So that's the book that I'm working on. If you're keen on developing that, please reach out. I've been speaking to a lot of different developers. Thing is, it's quite difficult to turn these economic concepts, even with an Excel sheet that's already done. It's kind of hard to turn them into smart contracts, especially when you have to create them from scratch. So that's one of the biggest challenge or risk that's out there. Still quite unsure how to do that, but let's take a step at a time and figure out what can be done. So this is super exciting, and once that's done, I can't wait to share it with you. And just play around with experimentation, and then what I want to do is take this as an experiment, maybe one or 2 years, take the empirical data, run some analysis to figure out if this system is robust or not. How awesome is that? We can do this. I love it. It's just so beautiful. Okay, so that's it for this week. I hope that gives you some inspiration to think beyond NFTs as art, because NFTs are powerful. We can do so many, we can embed so many design, mechanism design, systems design, a lot of other things beyond just graphics design in NFTs. And that's wonderful. Alright, till then, I'll see you next week. Bye!